You guys can hear me fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Not sure if everybody's tuned in yet, but I'm going to get started. I'm going to start with the basics. I know a lot of you guys already know quite a bit about the game. You might already have done scanning, but for those who haven't, I'll start on those first. I'm sure you guys know how to find the ship tree. If not, it's the EVE icon, ship, and then ship tree. Each race is going to have a ship, specifically a frigate, made for and has bonuses for scanning and probing. They're not going to have slot layouts for weapons. They're not going to have slot layouts for good defense. They're ideally just for scanning. In Amar, we have the Magnate. As you see, it has Relic and Data Analyzer bonuses and Combat Scanner Pro bonuses. You need those, or else you're going to struggle to scan down the sites. And when it comes to the hacking, you're going to fail a lot of the hacks and not get any loot. Caldari has the Heron, pretty much same bonuses as far as I know. Galente, the Imicus. And the Probe for Minmatar. Sorry, that took me a minute. I don't fly those.
Okay.
And then there's some specialty ones. And if you're into scanning a lot, hacking, and especially if you plan to go into wormholes, you're going to want to be able to cloak. The ideal ones for those is going to be the Astero. It's going to get way better bonuses. It's going to have a way better slot layout. You'll be able to fit defensive modules or fast aligning modules, possibly warp core stabilizers if you plan on going in low sec or null sec, so people can't catch you as easily with warp scramblers and warp disruptors. You'll notice it's got a way larger bonus to scan probes and data relic analyzers. This is ideally what you want to get into. It'll take a little bit more training, and if you plan to use the cloaking part of it, that takes quite a bit more training, and alphas aren't able to use the cloaks. So it would be an Omega only thing to be able to go into wormholes pretty much, at least safely. There's upgraded versions of that. More slots, better defense, better attack, larger drone bays, better bonuses. That's going to be the Stratios. It's going to jump from a frigate to a cruiser to this. This one also is a covert ops ship. It also aligns fairly fast. They can be used in PvP, PvE, or for scanning. And the reason for PvE they're so great, they have really good drone bonuses and a large drone bay. You can fit lights, mediums, heavies, some salvages, some mining drones, usually whatever you need in there. The battleship is a little different. While it has the same bonuses to relic and data, scan abilities, it's going to be way more on the defense PvE side. And it actually has a bonus, if you notice, to remote armor repairer amount. That's really rare for battleships. So when you're doing large scale stuff like PvP, large fleets, attacking stations, stuff like that, they end up using these a lot so they can repair each other during the fight to keep the whole fleet up and not, dying. The downside to the Nestor is it doesn't do covert ops cloaking. It only does basic cloaking. The difference is basic cloaking allows you to say, come through a gate, drop your probes, start scanning, and you can cloak up. That keeps you safe from anybody finding you, scanning you down, attacking you. The downside of the Nestor is it doesn't use the covert ops cloak. It's unable to warp around like the Astero and Stratios. Those ones you can cloak up and then you can warp to gates, warp to your sites. You can do whatever you want while cloaked. There's no limitations, and the ship still goes fast. The battleship one, when you're using the standard cloaks, there's a few different downsides to it. It has a cloaking delay. So if you did want to attack something or someone, when you uncloak, there's going to be a long amount of time basically a waiting period before they allow you to lock on something. And being that it's a regular basic cloak and not covert ops cloak, you can't warp around in it. So you would actually have to scan down the sites, uncloak, which then everybody would see you, warp to the site, and you'd be vulnerable the whole time, which tends to make Stratios and Asteros better for doing wormhole, nullsec, and lulsec stuff. That's basically it for the ships. I don't believe there's any more except one special edition ship. I'll show you that right now. The downside to the special edition ship is it can't fit nothing but the data hacking module. So this would be, let's say you already scanned down the site, but you want to undock the best ship in the game with the most bonuses to scanning. Let me figure out where I parked that guy. So I'm going to make this one active and go into my fitting screen. This is a special edition ship. I believe it costs about the 19 mil, 20 mil mark, and the module is about the 19, 20 mil mark. This ship right here will have the best hacking ability. It's going to have the highest virus coherence. And when you start to do hacking, you'll realize that there's virus strength and virus coherence. It's basically your ability to hack through the minigame. And if you haven't seen the minigame, it's like Minesweeper, a lot of people compare it to. You'll have to complete the minigame, and then it unlocks the data or the relic container, and then you can click on it and loot it. You'll hear sometimes people saying relic sites are the better option. Data usually pays a lot more. Relic, you'll tend to get salvage and sometimes carbon, sometimes containers are empty. On datas, you'll get things for invention, for research, for production, things known as data cores. You'll get blueprint copies. There's a lot of things out of data that you can get. It's really nice. Good money. The average data site, I want to say, has about 2 to 5 million in it. Sometimes a little more if you get lucky. This ship right here, though, as you notice, doesn't have high, lows, or mids. It's basically only for actually doing the hacking part. So you would need a scanning ship to scan down the site prior, jump into this if you wanted to have those extra bonuses. Not completely needed, but I just wanted to bring it up. Now, for example reasons, I grabbed Heron out of the corp hangar. It's already set up, ready to go. It has the modules on it, and I'll go through and explain the modules. It doesn't matter that I'm using a Caldari ship, because when I showed you earlier in the ship tree, whether you go Mar, Minmatar, Caldari, or Galente, all the ships are going to have similar same bonuses to scanning, hacking, and all that. So it basically transfers over. Even though I use this one, it'll apply to your Galente ship or your Amar ship. Okay, and making it active, you'll see, at least for this, like I was saying, you don't need any combat modules, no guns, no salvager, you don't need any defense modules, and the only thing you really need off a basic ship is going to be an afterburner. And the reason for that is sometimes when you warp into the relic and data sites, you're going to be 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers from the hack containers. And you're going to want to get to them fast, because while you're in there, somebody else could be scanning that site down, warp in, and you'll have competition for the containers. They'll be taking loot right in front of you. And once somebody opens the mini game on one of the hack containers, nobody else can access the container. So sometimes people will take advantage of this. They'll open the hack game and just sit there until the other person leaves. The downside to that, though, is they may hack the other 4 containers while you're sitting there on that container. The basic module you're going to need to find these sites is going to be the core probe scanner. If you look here, launches core scanner probes. There's another version of this. It's called an expanded probe launcher. I can't see that through here. Well, basically, the expanded probe launcher also allows you to launch combat probes. The difference between regular scan probes and combat probes? Regular scan probes are going to only scan down sites, so signatures that you see in the scanning menu. The combat probes, they will allow you to scan down players, wrecks, drones, and MTUs. This sounds a lot like a PvP thing, you know, like if you want to find a player in a system, warp in on them and attack them. That's the ideal way you want to do it. The use for it in high sec is going to be, let's say you left an expensive drone out in space, or your MTU that pulls in your wrecks. Those are 8 million. And you warp away, you turn in your mission, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot that. How do I go back and get it? Now I just lost that. 8 million down the drain. Well, if you get out a ship with an expanded probe launcher, launch combat probes, you can actually scan down your drone. You can scan down your MTU and then warp in on it and loot it so you don't lose it. You would just have to remember which system you left it in. In the great case that we live in Nalu and most of the missions are in Nalu, you probably know where it is. The probes themselves, they look like these here. Core scanner probes, yellow. Combat probes are going to be a reddish color, I believe. While the core scanner probes will get the job done, there's a better one called Sisters core scan probes. They have a higher scan percentage rate. Using those, especially if you have low skills, will help you scan down sites faster. While this one's naked in the rig slots, there's normally rigs you can put in here that will help you scan sites faster and get a higher percentage when you scan them down, allowing you to get them quicker rather than take longer to scan it down. You can get those same bonuses from these two modules here, the scan range finding array and the pinpointing array. The range finding, you'll see, increases the scan strength. So that means that, let's say you scan it and it comes up at 30%. If you were using a module like this, it may come up at 35%, 40%. You'll get a better scan percentage on every scan you do. So using one of these will allow you to scan down the sites faster, allow you to get in quicker before other people get to the site and loot it before you do. The pinpointing reduces how long it takes to scan. When I go ahead and scan, you'll see that there is like a wave that goes from left to right. This will speed up that wave. You also have skills that will speed that up as well. If you're low skilled, you want to fit these modules. When you're high skilled, these are less of a need. They're more of a luxury just to help you get it done faster. 2 modules will be needed. There's going to be relic analyzers and data analyzers. When you scan down a site, it's going to tell you in the name of the site if it's a data or a relic. Having both these modules will allow you to run all the sites you encounter. Let's say you don't like relic sites. You decide they're junk and they don't have good money. Or let's say you don't like data sites and you're looking just for salvage. You would only need one of these modules, but there's also alternatives too. Let me see if I can find one. I know I got one here. I just have so many ships I get lost. Give me one sec. Here we go, the pacifier. So you'll notice this thing's set up for hacking as well, but also cloaking, and has offensive and defensive modules. This could handle an NPC, possibly a player, but in most cases, and in this one you see there's an overdrive injector. My idea is to get away. I don't want to fight in this. It's an expensive ship. But the reason I brought us over here is this module, a Frostline Clavica integrated analyzer. It's a little expensive, and there's going to be other versions like this as well. Some cheaper, some more expensive. The benefit of this is it's a relic and a data analyzer in one. So you only need one slot to use this. The downside, though, is usually they're not as strong as a relic or a data. You tend to be a jack of all trades and not great at either one. If you have high skills, this can get you by. If you have limited slots, this can get you by. Let's say you want to hit data sites while you're running combat sites. You can sometimes squeeze this one module into a combat ship, and in between combat sites, when you encounter a data or a relic, you can run them, getting you that little bit of extra ISK. I don't recommend that ship though. Super expensive. Once you fit it, you're looking at 100+ million. Not as cheap as say the Heron that we were looking at first. So less than 1 million for the ship. When you fit it out, you might be looking at 5 million.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, that was with if you did Tech 2 modules, if you did rigs and all that, you could probably hit that 5 million mark. Just right here for these items, you're looking at less than 2 mil, 1.5 mil, depending on where you shop for the stuff at.
Hey, thanks. Is that Heron Fit Alpha compatible, or
Yeah,
any module is Omega?
everything on this is alpha compatible. I believe we also have this fit and possibly other scanning fits saved in the corp fitting screen. If it's not there, I will add them after the class just to make sure. I'll do one for each race so everybody has an option and they can just go load up the fit and buy what they need. The only thing that's going to not be alpha compatible is when you start getting into the Stero and Stratios. The cloaks, let me show you one. So covert op cloaks, you'll see up here, it's limited to Omegas only. Requirements are pretty high as well. You need cloaking 4 and CPU management 4. A lot of times just training into those skills and you have to buy the covert ops skill sometimes takes people 10, 15 days to get all that done at least. Even with cerebral accelerators speeding it up. It's not necessary. You don't need one of these unless you plan on going in wormholes, nullsec, and lowsec. But ideally, you want to learn how to do all this in high sec where you're safe and you don't have that stress and worry of somebody jumping you and killing you. Okay, so back to the ship. So I covered the different ships we use, the specialty ships. I covered the modules. I covered the what we would use to scan down, which are the probes. There's a more expensive probe option. So I told you about the core probes. Right here we have sisters core probes. These ones are going to have a higher percentage. They're going to be more expensive as well. I believe they're about 1 million each, and to do scanning you need a minimum of 8 of them. Where the other probes you could buy all 8 for less than 1 million. But having these is a staple of scanning. Once you can afford them, you want to get them. Taking too long to scan a site slows down your ISK per hour, makes it not as fun, makes it take longer, and allows people to beat you to the site and loot before you. These are the combat scanners I mentioned. I was clearly incorrect on the color. They're blue, not red. These are the ones that will allow you to scan down players and your lost drones, MTUs, all that kind of stuff. Another good things for these is, let's say you are somebody who likes to salvage wrecks. There's a lot of people that run missions and leave all their wrecks and all their loot out there. You can actually use these probes with an expanded probe launcher and you can scan down somebody's mission site. You can warp in on somebody's mission, whether they're there or not. When they're not there, you're free to salvage all their wrecks. Free loot for you. So some people actually use these and go system to system and just gather salvage. A lot of times those people will use that salvage to build rigs for ships and then place the rigs on the market for sale. Basically turning, item profit into ISK profit by market sales. That's about it for all those. I carry an extra 8 probes. You never know, and especially when you're going into wormholes, that you may lose them. Oh, look, Kalani left. They never talked in Corp anyway. It's okay. So core scanner probes. Carry 8 in your probe launcher. If you can, carry 8 as backup. This is super important when you get into a wormhole. Let's say you go AFK, you're cloaked, you're like, I'm safe. But let's say you forgot your probes out in space. They have an expiration timer. I believe it's 1 hour. So if you were AFK, you got busy, let's say your kids are screaming, you had to eat, you had to run to the store, you'll come back and your probes will be gone. They disappeared. You can no longer recall them. If you're in a wormhole and you didn't bookmark the entrance, you could be stuck. And in a wormhole, that's a serious issue because the only way out is then to self-destruct your ship. You lose your whole ship, all your loot, your modules, and your pod. There's no way around that. The only other option is there's a corp out there called EvE Scout Enclave, and they will place containers in wormholes labeled the name of their corp. And on those containers, they give you a Discord channel. And you can join that Discord channel and tell them the wormhole you're in, and they will actually come and find you and help you get out of that wormhole. It's a really cool service they offer. I don't believe they charge you for it. I've never had to use it, though. Okay, so now that we covered all that, ships, modules, the basics, a kind of idea of what you do and don't do, I'm going to undock and we'll see if we can find some sites.
Okay.
And I'll definitely at the end do any kind of questions. Anybody that wants to type in their question that doesn't have a mic, welcome to do that as well. And I'll clear up anything you might be confused about. So as we see, I already have my probes loaded. I have both my modules. I tend to set my stuff up in a certain order, and I do this whether it's a combat ship or anything. I move everything to the left, usually my propulsion in the bottom, and usually attack or main modules in the top. Supplementary stuff in the middle. If you notice, and some of you guys may be wondering, like, where's all the other modules on your ship? If you see that pop-up menu, it kind of disappears a little bit, but that pop-up menu right there will allow you to turn passive modules off. I'll show you right now. When you look at those, you can see you don't need the cargo expanders. You don't need the warp core stabilizer. These. None of these you click to turn on. One second. Sorry, somebody knocked at my door. Wasn't expected that. Okay, so as you see, I have these modules blinking. This one's turned on. All of those are active modules. You actually click those and use those. None of those modules could be turned on down there. So you don't need to see them on your screen. It's technically screen clutter. So by going to that menu I showed you, you can actually click and hide all your passive modules. Makes it much less cluttered. You don't get confused. Let's say you're in the middle of a combat fight and you panic. You're like, oh my God, what do I hit? What do I hit? Where's my shield booster? And you've got 100 modules there and you're getting lost and freaking out. This sorts it to only the stuff you have to mess with. This applies to combat ships, not just scanning ships. It'll just make life easier for you. Quality of life adjustment. Okay, so probe scanning. This icon down here, this button, opens all your scanners. There's numerous scanners. The only one we're going to worry about right now is the probe scanner. When you press the button, it's going to be the one to the left. As you see, it has a hotkey as well, alternate P. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a wormhole in this system. At least it was last night. But for example reasons, we'll check and find out. So now that I have the scanner window up, and an important thing I need to mention, while it might seem nice to make this super huge so you can see the map bigger and everything, you always want to have your overview viewable on the right-hand side. And the reason for that is if you're in a PvP area, you want to know when somebody warps in on you. You want to be able to see a player if they show up, or NPCs. Oh, we lost the capsule. Oh, and a rupture. Okay. Nice. Okay, so all of these here, you know, you're going to have basically everything in your overview, but when a player warps in, you'll see him close to you. If you're in a low sec, null sec, high or anywhere but high sec, that player's probably there to attack you. They're going to target you, warp scramble you, and kill you. So always keep your overview up and viewable. When you go over the scanning window, you can roll your mouse wheel and it will zoom in on the map area. Now, when you grab inside the map and move it up and down, you can spin the map from a top view to a side view. That's super important because when it comes to the scanning, you have to line up your probes properly. Now, here's what we do. If you target the signature you're looking for, and you see over there it says you have to have a minimum 25% signal strength. You should have that as long as you fit a ship like this with those modules and have the basic skills to do this. Left-clicking it will highlight that on the map. So let's say there was 10 signatures around here. It'll make the one that you want to get highlighted in red. It'll be darker than the rest. At that point, you want to zoom in a little bit so you can get a better view on it. When you launch your probes, you can do it from within this menu with the launch button, or you can do it from the actual module. I'm going to do the module just for example. As you notice, all the probes landed next to me on the overview. If you're cloaked, these won't uncloak you. You're completely safe. No need to worry about that. Now you notice they landed on the screen. They're not on my spot. The way to move these around is you're going to click on the tops of the square. Left click and drag it. Now there's two keyboard buttons you're going to want to use when you're doing this. That's going to be Control and Alt. Control you're rarely going to use. Alt you're going to use all the time. Let me zoom in on it so you can see. So holding the Control key will move them in closer. Now that isn't always needed because when these launch initially, they launch in what's called pinpoint formation. And that's ideal where you want it to be able to scan stuff down. Now remember when I told you about left clicking in and moving it to the side view? If you look right now, it looks like we're lined up perfectly on that. Like we're ready to scan it, we're going to find this site. Let me scan to the side view. Our probes are way off. So at this point, you notice the arrows, you can highlight over them. Grabbing the up arrow is going to drag it up so you can put it centered with the site you're scanning down. You'll notice it's off to the side. You want to grab it, drag it a little over. It's not as important. You really want to make sure you're just within that circle. Now, what I tend to do is do a top view, side view, and then scan. So I'm going to double check my top view. We're good enough. Now notice how the red bubble is bigger than the blue bubbles. That pretty much means you're going to get a 0 signature scan when you do it. You want to make sure that your scan probes are larger than the bubble you're scanning. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the alternate key and roll the mouse wheel upwards, which will increase the probe size. It'll do all of them at the same time. Just one roll. You see we're now covered. I'm going to hit the Analyze button. This is that wave I told you, the scan deviation that goes from left to right. By using that module that speeds it up, will make this duration faster. Also, training your skills up will make that duration faster. You notice it came in at 19.4. It still says it's a cosmic signature. I have no clue what it is yet. You have to get a higher percentage, somewhere close to like between 30 and 50. I don't know exact, but it'll tell you what it is. And let's say you're looking for data sites. You'd be like, oh, it's a wormhole. Time to move on. Head to the next system. So if you notice now, it moved. Our scan probes let us know that that wasn't exactly where it was. We need to adjust our probes to find out the exact spot. So I'm going to do a top view. Line it up, side view. Line it up, and then I'm going to hold Alt and shrink it once. Hit Analyze, and it's going to get us a higher percentage. As long as you make sure it's lined up on the top view and lined up on the side view, everything will be good. Only shrink your probes one at a time. Okay, so we have a wormhole here. To simplify things, I'm going to play dangerous today. We're just going to go in the wormhole. Don't do this. Don't be like me. I'm going to zoom in a little farther. I'm going to hold Alt and lower them one more size. Now that we know it's a wormhole and it's turned orange, that sight's not going to move anywhere. And how I told you we only shrink it one size, once it's orange, you can technically go 2 now. We're still fairly lined up on the top and the bottom. Zooming in, though, lets us know that we're off. I'll grab the top of the square, line it up, check the side, we're also off. Analyze. And since I shrunk it twice, this should get us 80 to 100%. Boom, wormhole's been found. The site will turn green on the map and on the overview of the scan probes section. This arrow means you can warp to it. At this point, because we know there's no other sites in the system, this button here will recover your active probes. They will pull them into your cargo bay. Now, if you forget your probes and you jump to the next system or jump into a wormhole or even dock up, there's a cool new game feature where it will automatically recall all your probes and place them in your cargo bay. Another thing to mention too is if you noticed, my probe scanner is already loaded. Because I had 8 of them in my cargo bay, when I launched the first 8, my module went into automatic reload mode. And now it has 8 ready for me to go already, even though I was using 8. So that's another benefit of having an extra backup set. So now that I know where the site is, I can warp into it. We know we're in high sec. This is a wormhole. Normally, if you're in somewhere that's dangerous, you may want to warp 30 kilometers away from the wormhole. If you're in a wormhole itself, you want to stay cloaked while you do it. Let's just go ahead and warp over there. It's safe. We're in high sec. The only exception is now that Triglavians took space, sometimes there's some wormholes with some red Triglavians sitting on the outside. If so, we're going to have a good example of me getting blown up. Okay, you see I jumped over there. We know this is the only site. We no longer need this probe menu for the moment. Okay, we landed at the wormhole. If none of you have ever seen a wormhole, they all pretty much look like this. The color might be different. It'll show up on the overview. It's going to have a number. That number represents what type of wormhole it is. There's lists online where you can look up all these wormholes and find out what type it is. The easiest way in-game without a website or a third-party tool is to right-click on it and show info. Now right here it says it's an unstable wormhole. Every wormhole is unstable. That means that it's not going to be here forever. It's going to close at some point. Right here it says unknown parts of space. Unknown, as long as it doesn't say dangerously unknown, that means it's between a C1 to a C3 class wormhole. That means lower levels, easier sites to do. Whenever it says dangerous, it's going to be a class 4 to class 6, I believe. Tougher sites, more sleeper NPCs, much harder, and probably more players in there waiting for you. Now, the next line on this wormhole is beginning to decay and probably won't last another day. That usually means this wormhole is going to last between 2 to about 12 hours before it closes. If this line right here changes and says that it's going to last only a few hours, I believe is what it says, that means you have 2 hours or less before that wormhole closes. That brings up what I brought up earlier, that you're inside a wormhole and it closes up, you could be stuck. If you have probes, as soon as a wormhole entrance closes, another one opens somewhere else in the wormhole. You can always scan that other one down and find an exit back into high sec. They call these static wormholes. And what that means is, if the wormhole has a high sec entrance, when that high sec entrance disappears, there's always going to be another high sec entrance. But you could have entered here in Nalu, the new one could throw you 50 jumps away. So ideally, when you go into wormholes, you want to get into the wormhole, back out before it closes. or else you could spend all day flying back to your home. Okay, so at the bottom, it says, oh, let me get this line first. It has not yet had its stability significantly disrupted by ships. That means nobody in large ships has tried to go through this and close the hole, and no large fleets have really been coming in and out of it. The last one says up to medium-sized ships can pass through. That means that up to, I believe, battle cruisers. I believe once you hit battleships, it becomes a large ship, and you would get an error, like a pop-up saying you can't enter the wormhole. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Before I do that, I want to bring up two things. You want to have people and places open. You want to be set to your bookmarks, the location section. And the reason is you're going to bookmark this entrance on when you go in, because if you warp off, you won't be able to warp back to it. You'll have to scan it down. The other one I want to mention is, remember the scanner menu? I told you there's numerous scanners, but we were only going to work with the probe scanner. Well, now clicking on it, we're going to click the one on the right, which is the D scan, the directional scanner. There's hotkeys for these as well. I believe alternate E will open your bookmarks and alternate D will open your directional scanner. If you notice the directional scanner, I have it set to max range. It's going to search as far as it can, and the angle. The angle means it's going to search in a bubble, a full 360 around you. You can change this to 180, to 90. This is mostly used in PvP when you want to locate a player. You can find which planet they are at by turning it to a cone 90-degree angle and pointing it at different celestials in space. If they show up on D-scan, you know that's where the player is, and you would warp to said planet, sun, station, and be able to find them. So right here in HiSec, you can see everything that it's finding. Now, what you see on the D-scan is associated with which overview tab you're on. If I go to targets and D-scan, it's only going to come up with an acolyte, because on targets, I only have things that I can target. Enemies, NPCs, players, drones. Nothing's there. But if I go to combat, it's going to bring me up a lot of stuff. Wrecks, ships, players, warp locations. Okay, now that I got that covered, I'm just going to jump in the hole and we're going to see what happens. Now keep in mind, you don't normally want to do this unless you're in an ultra cheap ship like this, or you have cloaking devices. Like everything else, you have to approach. This is where Afterburner comes in play. Going to help get us to that hole quicker and jump through. The first time you do this, it's going to have a pop-up warning you that you're entering a hole. I recommend keeping that up just for that warning. Okay, now that we're in here, we see this is the hole I went in last night, definitely. Me and Captain came in here, and I scouted for him while he hacked a few sites. I believe he came out with about 25 million in loot. So if you look here, the directional scanner is telling us everything we can see within range. We have a Reitaru and an Astros. Those are both player-owned stations. They carried them into this wormhole and placed them. If you see stuff like this, it's pretty much 100% guarantee this is an active wormhole that people live in. If you click on local, you'll notice nobody's here. That's not true. In wormholes, they have something called delayed local. I could be the only person in here, or there could be 100 people in here. I wouldn't know unless they spoke. So you never want to speak in wormholes. Once you do that, it's pretty much a, hey, look at me, I'm over here. And they're going to come try to find you. So always stay off local, never type in local, just never, yes. Even if you get in a fight and fight someone, just don't type in local, just get out of there. Okay, so the next thing to bring up is different wormholes have different bonuses. So we did, remember when I told you this was a class 1 to class 3, it's a class 1. This is the lowest level of wormholes. There's going to be bonuses and negatives. Bonus to remote armor repairer. So this would be great for nesters or for logi ships. 30% bonus to capacitor. You could run your afterburner micro warp drive longer. But it has a penalty to recharge time, penalty to cap transfer. So it almost breaks logis at that point. And then it has a penalty to armor repair and shield booster effectiveness. So then again, not good for logis. That first bonus was a little misleading. Don't usually pay attention to those unless you're dealing with combat. It usually won't apply to you. Now we see on the overview, when you're in wormholes, you want to always hit D-scan. That's going to keep you updated. Every time you hit it, it's going to show you what is around you. The only thing that won't pop up there is something that's out of your range or something that's cloaked. The cloaked guy could be right next to you right now and you not even know it. Now I'm going to get away from the wormhole and get moving. So if somebody warps to the wormhole, they don't land on me.
Did you bookmark it?
No, I'm going to show you that right now. So as long as I don't warp away, I'm moving right now, you can see the wormhole on the overview. Right click it and you'll be able to save. I tend to follow the same naming procedure in every wormhole I go in, so it doesn't change anything. And by doing that, it auto saves what I type. So if I just hit the E key, it brings up a lot of stuff that I have. So exit. I know this is going to be my way out. Now you're like, where did that go? Up here, people and places, which you'll also find on the side or within your EvE icon. And if you click on the locations tab, there's going to be different ones, shared locations. This is also where you can find your agent mission. It's another way to look them up if you can't figure out where the window went or how to find it. Now, clicking on personal locations, there's going to be a folder with your name. Opening that, I'll see that I have exit here. I'm going to keep it up on my screen at all times because when I warp away from here, that's my only way out. There's nothing on the overview anymore once I warp away. That will be my only way to get back. And to use it, you right click and warp. Right now it only shows approach because I'm already on the wormhole. So just to get off the wormhole, because this is going to be one of the busiest spots in the system, I'm now going to warp to the sun because I don't have a cloak. I need to just get away. Warping to 100 in every site in a wormhole is a must. The reason is you want to check because you could warp into something and there'd be a whole bunch of red NPCs there. And in wormholes, they're called sleepers. Those guys can kill you in a quickness. So warp to 100, you see enemies, warp away. It's rare that you'll see them at a sun, though. More likely to run into a player over here. Different wormholes will have different suns, red, orange, blues, like Nova-styled ones. They're pretty cool. There's going to be some good scenes inside wormholes when you come in. I'm looking again. Now I can see that, remember I told you guys about EvE Scout? That's the corp that if you lose your probes or you get stuck in a wormhole, they will come help get you out. You just have to contact them. Right-clicking and show info shows stranded in this wormhole, request help in the EvE Scout channel. Now, if you need to find that channel, on your tabs down here, you can hit open. Where it is, I don't know. I'm not going to bother looking for it. We're going to get attacked if we spend too much time in it. But you'll be able to find it in there. It's in one of those drop-down menus. And going in there, you would let them know which wormhole you got stuck in, and they would help you get out. Okay, I keep hitting scan. Another thing I need to mention, too, is I believe the spacebar works for that, too. Oh, mine's not, so maybe it doesn't. It used to for me, at least. Okay, so I'm going to get into the scanning part of this. I open the probe scanner. Whoa, there's a million things in here. You're going to get confused. All these green sites, they're going to be combat sites. Do not warp to those. You will get killed. Now, I launched my probes. We're still in a small bubble because we used that on the last one. I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. I don't want to go all the way large and scan the whole system because if I start a little bit small, I might land some of these sites at 20, 30% and get me done faster. As you see, I got some 19s, some 10s, 4, 5s, 11s. I tend to go for the highest one. That means I got closest to that one. Okay, and I'm going to start doing the method from the top. Pull them in one size. Make sure you're lined up somewhat close. Turn to a side view. Line it up. Scan. So pretty much line up top view, line up side view, shrink one size, scan. And if you follow that procedure over and over, you will get to 100% as long as your skills can. So that's a gas site. So that's for miners. NPCs do spawn in those after 15 minutes. So if you don't have protection, you ideally would go into a gas site, mine, and then warp out when those NPCs show up. And that would be it for you. That site would be burned because those guys would be staying there and you wouldn't be able to go back. So now that I know that that gas site is not something I want, I'm going to go on to a cosmic signature, the next highest one. Line up top view, line up side view, shrink by one, scan. And it's, it takes time when you're in a place like this with lots of sites. I haven't been hitting D-scan, but that's something you should be doing. As you see, we can see my probes on the scanner. If you ever see more than 8, you know that somebody else is in the wormhole scanning too. Okay, we got a data site level 2. That tells me that since it's not a level 3 or higher, there's not going to be NPCs in it. I'm going to finish scanning that and we'll get to do a little hack. Now, because I had it orange, I'm safe to shrink it twice. I know that site's not going to move. Now, because I shrunk it twice, I'm probably going to nail that 100% rather than doing 2 scans. Bam, there we go. I'm only going to show you guys one site, so I know that I can pull my probes in. I don't have to scan the rest down. Some people will actually scan all the sites, find all the datas, and then do them. The downside to that is the longer you're sitting in space, the easier somebody could jump you, and the longer your probes are out, the more of a chance somebody knows you're in the wormhole. So I'm pulling them back in. I have my site at 100%. If you look at it, it says level 2 when you hover over it. Now, if you see one, and rather than saying something like Central Serpentis, if it says unsecured, there's going to be NPCs in that site. Never warp in at 0. If you're in a cloak, warp it 100. But if it's an unsecured, stay away from it. You're going to die before you hack. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and warp into this site. Now, keep in mind, there could be a cloaky player in here that's waiting for me to scan the site down. Me and Wombat both do this. We tend to hide in wormholes and we go and catch people. It's good loot, good money, and it's a little bit of fun. But somebody could jump me, so let's keep an eye on that. I'm going to warp into the site. I'm going to warp to 0 because I know it's not an unsecured and I feel there won't be NPCs in it. Now, when it pops up like this, you get a pop-up box with a description. If you ever have a scroll bar on the side, stop your warp. It's going to have NPCs. If it's got a ton of info in this box, there's going to be sleepers in the site. That's a telltale before you even warp in. I'm going to reduce this window, bringing it down. I'm going to check my probe scanner one more time. I see it looks like it's still me. As you see, I landed in the site. I have a couple different hacking things. I believe the comm towers and the mainframes are going to be the best ones, with the data banks being the lesser. So I'm going to go for the closest comm tower first. I'm going to hit my burner and approach it as fast as I can. When you're doing this, you want to keep the overview up and keep hitting D-scan. Now, if somebody's cloaked, keep in mind you're not going to see them. Okay, I'm getting close enough to this that I'm good. I'm going to target it and use my data scanner. Now, see how I'm bouncing around off this thing? A little bit on the annoying side. A player's going to catch me if I'm like this. So I'm going to show you a little trick what I do. You want to align to your exit. And then stop your ship. And that's going to make sure that you're aligned to a warp out. It's going to make you much safer in here. Okay, now onto this. We have your virus coherence and your virus strength. Your strength is how much of an attack you have as going through the minigame. The coherence is your life. Once this goes down, you're done. The hack will fail and it will blow up. Now there's a trick. You can, if let's say I was getting through this and I was about to fail, you can hit the X and close out. You can do that 2 times. If you do it the 3rd time, the container will blow up. So I'm just going to go and start the hack. If you look online and the guides, they're going to give you this thing they call the rule of 6, where each time you click on one of these little nodes, it's going to pop up a number. I don't pay attention to that. If you want to, it's good info, good to know. So the first one I clicked, you see I get a wrench. We have these 3 slots down here. These are utility slots, and they allow you to have tools that can help you make it through this without dying or make it easier for you. Now look at how I have my window placement right now. You can see that I have my overview up. I can see if there's a player and my scan button. I always do it like this, and I keep my bookmarks where I can still click on it. So I have access to all my windows even though this is up on my screen. So I can hit the scan button and check for a player again. Or combat probes. Combat probes will be looking for you. If you see combat probes, get the hell out of Dodge. All right, so we see the wrench. No. We have it down here in the tools. It has 3 uses. I'll show you how that works. So remember I told you the rule of 6. Now each of these things, they'll pop up a number when you do them. I'm not going to pay attention to those. I have a certain strategy I do. I know that if we start on this side, it's going to end on this side. It's going to make you work the hardest to get it. It's going to be on the far end. And I found that you run into less issues when you go around the outside edge. So being that we're close to the top, I'm going to follow the top and down. There's a good chance I'll run into it within 15 clicks. Let's see how I do. Okay, now this is one of the first attack nodes. You'll notice I have this amount of health and this amount of strength. This wrench comes in help right here. Now I used that wrench up and it didn't take from my health. So now I'm free to continue moving. And we encountered another. I don't have a tool, so I'm just going to have to eat this and see how it works. This one's not going in our favor. Now, when you come to something like this and you have a big gap, I'm pretty sure it's going to be in these 3 right here. But I'm going to work my way around the outside edge and see if I can gather a tool. Bam, actually we found it right there. And as you see, it was in the far opposite side, not fully in the corner, but I've noticed 99% of the times it's going to follow this. And going around the outside tends to be easier than counting numbers and hoping for your luck throughout the minigame. Now, if I look at this, see how far that dropped? I cannot hit that the 2nd time or I'm going to die. So I need to try to find a tool or I'm not going to be able to hack this. Bam, there we go. System hack successful. So now you can access the container. Hit the open cargo. And here we go. We have a high-tech data chip worth 170 thou, 16 secondhand parts, and a high-tech data manufacturing. So that one container was worth 1.1 million. Now there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 containers. You'd want to make sure to loot this, whether you hit the loot button or drag and drop it into your ship. There we go. And that's pretty much how to hack, how to find the site. We did it a dangerous way. I don't recommend doing it in wormholes. I recommend doing it in high sec. Always do D-scan. Always watch your overview. Always bookmark the entrance when you come in and keep it up so you have that safe exit. Now that normally I would stay here and hack the rest of the cans, but I just wanted to teach you guys the basics so you understand how it all works. I'm going to use my exit right now. It doesn't have the jump button, if you notice, like normal gates will. You'll always have to warp to 0 and then jump through. Now, when you land at 0 on the wormhole like that, it's near impossible for a player to catch you and kill you before you go through the wormhole. So always warp to 0 when you're exiting the hole. Still nothing on D-scan. So last night and today, this was a pretty slow hole. It's empty. It might be a good idea for one of you guys to pop in here and try it out in a cheap shot. So I'll click the wormhole and I will exit. After this, unless I plan on coming in again, that bookmark is no longer useful. So I will actually delete that bookmark because I have no plan to come back in. And that was pretty much that. I'll warp back to DED. And any questions? Anything at all?
It was
Mm,
crystal clear to me. We understand
yeah,
who you cover all the basics. Pretty much it. I mean,
yeah, for me too.
I have nothing at the moment.
Cool. I hope I was clear. I tried to be as straightforward as I could, explain the basics. I would have went to another system and scanned down combat sites and stuff like that, but I'm not in a combat ship. I wouldn't have been able to do a direct, example with that ship. At least with going in the wormhole, we found a data site. I was able to show you the mini game. What I can say though is that mini game in the wormholes is much harder than the sites in HiSec. So I had more difficulty with that site because it was a tougher site. In HiSec, it'll be much easier for you guys to do.
Is this video rewatchable?
No, it is not. In the future, I think we'll be planning to record them, but it's pretty much a live class at the moment.
Okay.
Is it possible to do like exploration and hacking fleets, like going together into a wormhole, exploring different sites, and
You could. It's mostly a solo game, though. The only reason you would want other people with you, let's say in a wormhole, is for protection. There's some situations where you can do like fishing, where you place bait out. You get one guy in a hacking ship and have him go into the site and just sit next to the container. And he's just pretending to hack. And you're actually cloaked, sitting nearby, waiting to warp in. And as soon as somebody tries to attack him, you warp in and attack them. Besides, okay, go ahead.
I was like, or you could you can implement like any strategy or tactic. When you play with others, it's Sandbox, so the limitation is your own mind.
Yeah, you can come up with clever strategies, different stuff. Like when we went in a wormhole the other day, we did a mining op. Super rare, nice, expensive ore that you cannot get anywhere in HiSec. No matter what you try, cannot get it in HiSec. Well, we went in with combat ships and we scanned the wormhole down. We sent combat ships into the ore site and we killed the sleeper NPCs, which are really tough. And then we had the mining fleet jump into the wormhole and they warped into us and we mined for like an hour, maybe more, and everybody made a lot of money. So there's a lot of things you can do in wormholes. Most of them you're going to want to do with the fleet except hacking. Hacking is usually the solo thing.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, cool. Well, I hope that cleared up some things, and maybe you guys will get some exploration ships and go out there and make some money.
Just one thing, if I may say, if you are, so the way Adonix went into that wormhole without a covert ops cloaking device, if you guys do that, one option you can do to make it a little bit safer is after you save your wormhole bookmark, you can warp to the sun, or if you look inside the scanning window, you can find a star or a sun or a planet that's like on the opposite side of the solar system. You can warp to it, and if you save a location on your ship, so if you right click on your ship and click save location, and keep that window open, don't hit submit until you're halfway through your warp. You can actually save a safe in the middle of space, and then you can warp to that safe and do your scanning from there. And that way people can't descan you down. They have to have combat probes to be able to find you. So it makes it just a little bit safer, because sometimes in wormholes people will check all the sun. They'll check all the planets and D-scan them down to see where you're hiding it. So if you're sitting out in the middle of space at a safe like that, it can be that much harder for people to find you. So that's another little tip if you want. If you are going to be in a wormhole without a covert ops cloaking device, that makes it just a little bit safer.
Yes, totally correct. So basically what he was saying is while you're warping to the sun, place a bookmark while you're in warp. And that will give you a spot randomly in space that somebody can't land at unless they scan you down. Super safe to do that.
No, okay. It's a good advice.
It's a good idea.
Okay, I have to go for a little bit. I will be back in like 15 minutes or so.
Thank you for the class. I'm also going to be back later. Take care, guys.
Okay,
You too.
you
Bye.
guys too.